now that we're 10 years removed from those teams and you think about, like, when you look at the lineup, sometimes you're like, they trotted those guys out.
There was a Troy Tulowitzki sighting a few years ago.
Yeah.
If you do remember that one.
Brennan Bosch, like
Lyle Overbay.
Yeah. Like, what?
Lots of those guys.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm Stacey. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. With me, as always, my co-host, Brian McKeon. Brian, it's another Friday.
Another Friday, a little calmer than usual, a little nervous for the series going in, but a little calmer.
Yeah. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast on whichever podcasting platform you prefer. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Like our videos, hit the bell so you're notified when those videos go up. Coming up on today's show, we're going to preview the weekend series against the Cubs, again, in case you missed Thursday's episode. And it's Fanmail Friday, so let's get started with Fanmail Friday. First question, as usual, from our insiders. That is segment one. And question one always goes to Betty, who says, trying to remain excited about these guys coming back, but how will this pathetic organization manage to mess up the return of Heel and Schmidt? Yankee fans are in such a good mood lately.
Yeah, and Betty's a little more feisty than usual. We don't usually see that kind of language out of Betty. Listen, I think the way they mess up Heel and Schmidt, to be quite honest with you, is putting both of them in the starting rotation. Both of these guys need to wind up in the bullpen at the end of the year. It's your best chance of winning. Heel has the best strikeout stuff on the entire team besides Garrett Cole. And honestly, probably up there with Garrett Cole when it comes to like pure velocity, location, filth. I mean, I'm going to give it to Garrett Cole still, but Garrett Cole's not in line to become a closer. And Schmidt, I would leave as a long relief guy. I think for either guy, I think keeping them away from the bullpen in the postseason is what ruins them for this entire year. Am I sure the Yankees are going to let them go into the bullpen? Not at all. But I think that's the best move possible.
I agree with that, because if you're going into the playoffs, you need to have your best pitchers. And right now, the Yankees' best pitchers don't exist in the bullpen, really. Like, the bullpen is a crapshoot. And if you want to keep Clarke, Schmidt, and Luis Heel active, but you don't want to ruin their arms from too much work, what's the best place for them? The bullpen.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And, it's very rare. How many years have we said that the Yankees' best overall arms when it comes to stuff has not been in the bullpen? Usually always is. This is the first year in a while where their bullpen has not been a strength. So turn it back into a strength more often than not in the postseason, especially if you've watched the last decade or so. Bullpen pitchers matter a lot more than starters. Yes, starters matter, but games are won and lost at the end of the game, not in the beginning of the game. Let's go to David F. He's the second question. He says, Stacey and Brian, as the Yankees move towards the playoffs, hopefully, David, let's relax. They'll make the playoffs. What player or players outside of Judge and Soto do you see as X factors? I think it is Chisholm and Wells, assuming Wells gets to play. That's a really good point.
Yeah, Chisholm is going to be really important for the Yankees, because I love how when he gets on base, he does what I wanted Anthony Volpe to do.
Exactly.
He gets on base and he creates havoc on the base paths. And, there have been a couple times where he just makes it to first and then he's scoring before you know it because of things that are happening on the bases. And that's what I wanted Anthony Volpe to be. So that's what Jazz Chisholm is. And I think he really has a good shot of being one of those X factors. Wells, I think, is going to play as long as he's healthy.
I think they're afraid of the hand getting hit by the pitch, and they didn't want to overdo it with him because they didn't put him in the IL. So it's not like he's actually hurt. I think it's more of a precautionary thing. You don't want to stress it a little too much because they are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're not sitting him because they're not happy with what he's doing. It's because of the hand. And I understand that because, when the lineups came out for the past couple of days, people were like, where's Wells? And then, because of just what the Yankees tend to do sometimes, they don't do the moves you want them to. But I really think Jazz over those other three, the biggest X factor.
You definitely need production out of those guys. I'm going to go with a little bit of an outsider here, but I think his production is going to be very important. Gleyber Torres. Over the last month or so, he's been the leadoff hitter, and you got to create a tone at the start of that lineup, right? Especially following Judge and Soto. And I'm not just talking hitting, right? Getting on base. His base running is going to be absolutely massive. You can't get picked off on the base. You got to be smarter on the base paths, especially with those guys behind you. I mean, look at the importance of scoring a first inning run in the postseason, right? How much that means, especially if it looks like now the Yankees can wind up playing on the road to start if they fall behind Baltimore too much. So I would say Gleyber Torres is a huge X factor. Anthony Volpe could also become a massive X factor. But listen, you're going to need production out of multiple guys out of this lineup. You cannot be carried by two guys to win a World Series. No team's ever done it, and no team's ever going to do it. You're going to need production out of multiple guys in your lineup. I agree with David, though. Behind Judge and Soto, it's going to be Chisholm and Wells. And then I think a huge X factor is Gleyber Torres. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Gleyber's been picking it up lately, which is good to see. I just wish he would have picked it up, like 4 months ago. But what can you do? Thank you for the question, David. Up next, Shalid, another insider. Is it just me, or do the Yankees have a habit of getting has-been players or players that lose their fire once they get to the Yankees? I remember when Alex Verdugo played for the Red Sox thinking, I wish we had him. The second he gets to the Yankees, he's good for a month or so. Now he can't hit the ball consistently, if at all. I understand slumps, but this seems to happen frequently with a lot of players we get.
Yeah, I can't necessarily disagree with him. I can't really sit here and give credit to the Yankees with the Red Sox stuff. It is weird over the last few years. They have picked up more Red Sox players, and they've exchanged players a lot more often than you really expect them to. I mean, Adam Ottavino comes to mind. Verdugo, certainly. I don't know if it necessarily has to do with like exchanging teams, right? It's like Verdugo, I think, has a lot of talent. I think he's very highly thought of. He's an analytical dream. But he just tends to struggle. I mean, I don't know if there's really like an explanation or a link between the two. It's just more of, this is what happens. I mean, Adam Ottavino wasn't the same pitcher when he went over to the Red Sox. There's a lot of Garrett Whitlock's another one that really comes to mind, who you thought when he went over to the Red Sox, his numbers improved like crazy from where he was with the Yankees, because the Yankees were kind of forced to DFA him. And then he hasn't been as great since. Right. So it's like, these things are flip-floppy, they're tipsy-turvy. I will say this. Whenever they make a trade, either party in the trade, whoever's giving up the player usually thinks a very, very, very low of that player. At the Yankees with Adam Ottavino. Because if they thought highly of Adam Ottavino, there is no way they would have traded him to the Red Sox. And clearly they were right. Ottavino's been a fine Met since he's gotten to the Mets, but when he was with the Red Sox, he was nothing special, and the Yankees actually hit him really well when he was with the Red Sox. So you got to be careful with the way you view these kind of things.
Yeah. It seems the habit of them getting has-beens was more like 10 years ago, like the 2013, 2014 teams, like Brian Roberts, Kevin Youkilis, Travis Hafner, like guys like that. And you're like, what the hell is this? Like some of these guys that, now that we're 10 years removed from those teams, and you think about, like, when you look at the lineup, sometimes you're like, they trotted those guys out.
There was a Troy Tulowitzki sighting a few years ago.
Yeah.
If you do remember that one.
Brennan Bosch, like
Lyle Overbay.
Yeah. Like what?
Lots of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Casey says highlight and low light of the season to this point. Really good one. I mean, I think the low light, we both have to agree, right? I mean, if you want to go specific, Stacey, or do you want to go like overall? Because overall, low light could be like June and July. I mean, like they were terrible in both months.
Specifically, that last game against Baltimore on that Sunday when Ben Rice hit that big home run and Baltimore came back and walked them off, because they were kind of like getting on a roll there. Was that right before the All-Star break?
Yep, right before.
Right?
Yep.
And they have this habit of having stuff like that happen. It happened against Houston a few years ago. They were in Houston. They were up big. They were celebrating. And then Houston ended up walking off on them on that Sunday before the All-Star game. And it's just, I don't know, that specific game is a real,
we made a huge deal of it because at that point, going into the break, we were like, this is a huge moment for them, going into the break with a lot of confidence, having a chance to turn the things around.
Right. They were picking things up. Yeah.
Yep. And they weren't able to. I'm going to go back to another game And you know where I'm going with this one.
I do.
A lonely night in Milwaukee. Because
that was long ago too.
I am still not over that game. I was in April or May at this point. I think.
And Michael Tonkin isn't even with the team anymore.
Michael Tonkin was DFA'd for God's sake, and I'm still mad about that game. That game still aggravates me.
That was so unfair to him.
It was still handled so poorly by Boone. The kid just got there. Everyone just learned his name. I mean, he was on 3 teams in the last week, and now he's coming in to pitch a game. It was the most unfair thing possible. A game they still shouldn't have lost. A game that I'm still aggravated about. And I do feel like it kind of turned since then. I feel like since that game, that's when it kind of started to take a dip and you started to change your opinion on the way they were playing. So that's the game that is going to stick in my mind. I'm sure there's worse losses throughout the year. In fact, the other night comes to mind, but that's the one that's going to really be the low light to me. And the highlight of the year to me, for some reason, I come back to the Trent Grisham Grand Slam, not from the other night, the one in Yankee Stadium. I don't know why that one sticks in my mind, but overall, it's got to be the year that Judges had. Honestly, I mean, I don't know how you could say anything other than that.
My highlight is them going into Philly and sweeping because I remember being kind of like, I was confident about them going into Philly for some reason. I just had this weird feeling that they were going to do okay. But I was figuring 2 out of 3. I wasn't figuring that they were going to go into Philly and sweep them.
I still can't believe they did that, to be honest with
you. But that was good because they were coming out of, that was extremely late July, early August. So they were coming out of the doldrums of June and July. And that seemed to turn things around slightly. Not totally.
They swept the Red Sox in the series prior.
Yeah.
And that felt like the turning point where they were going to start flipping it around. And then, it kind of.
Right. Actually, that stretch there, including Philly and because they went to both and it was like, ooh, like
it kind of, and we were looking at that going into that stretch saying, oh, this is going to be a scary one. They could really take a tumble here. And they kind of sort of figured things out. They kind of sort of took off the ground, but not fully. It was kind of, it's kind of like been up and down since then. So, I think those are your best answers you're going to get out of this, Casey. Good question, though.
Yeah. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notifications so you know when our videos go up. And if you'd like to be part of next week's Fanmail Friday, reply to the pinned comment on our videos Monday through Thursday. You can ask us anything, or if you want to be in segment 1, you can join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club where you get top priority. The link is in the description. It isn't only for Fanmail Friday. You get text from us as soon as things happen. I had a couple of texts go out today with some of the moves that the Yankees made on Thursday. As we're recording this, you all know how we do that. We'll give you injury updates, roster moves, and more. There's a 14-day free trial. It's a good time. Coming up next, we're moving on to YouTube questions.
It's past the 7th inning of summertime, which means barbecue season is almost over, but you got to stock up on all of your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. So don't you have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That can cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps that give you points don't amount to much, but with Ibotta, you add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you can get real cash that you can cash out into your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the over 50 million users that earn cash back every time you shop for over 2,700 brands and retailers, including all of your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play and App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Welcome back, and thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. And for your second listen, make sure that you enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here for you daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to get you ready for the MLB playoffs. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And don't forget that you can catch every pitch of the Yankees' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Yankees. Stacey, we've moved on from our loyal insiders, but it's time to get to the YouTube questions, the real meat and potatoes of the show. Rolo _M dot the second 76. I love your name. Your parents did great work with it. Ty, Stacey, and Brian. I think he's saying thank you, Stacey and Brian. PY, yeah. For saying what we all fans are thinking after the card series. My question is coming from the Cortez's last outing versus the Cardinals and past ones. Besides Heel, do you two think that anyone on the staff goes to Cole to pick his brain? It doesn't seem like it. Also, with on offense, going to the two of the best, Judge and Soto, they're all teammates. They can and should talk to each other, right? Thank you for the shows. Let's go Yankees.
I mean, you would think so because, when Cole wasn't playing, he was basically like a de facto pitching coach. He would go up to, Heel and Cole are actually close. Heel calls him his teacher, But you would think that some of these guys would.
There's no way they don't. These guys are constantly talking shop. They're constantly talking pitching. I don't know if Garrett Cole is out there in the bullpen with Cortez, like telling him, get your knee lower or your elbow higher. But these guys are constantly talking shop. They're constantly talking game plan. They're constantly going in at. I mean, you got to remember, Garrett Cole is a student of the game. He's obsessive over baseball. So there is no way these guys aren't going back and forth on a daily about what they're going to do, how they're going to pitch certain guys. I mean, Garrett Cole didn't have to pitch in the Cardinals series, and he was still obsessed over how to pitch Nolan Arenado. So, I don't think that's necessarily a thing where they're not communicating on a given. And on offense, I do think guys pick Judge and Soto's brain, specifically Soto. You've seen it out of guys in this lineup. I mean, Gleyber Torres has not had a great year, but I think he's been a lot more patient at the plate watching Soto every day. And even Giancarlo Stanton, you don't see him chasing that ball on the outside a lot. Seeing a guy with the level of discipline Soto has in the middle of your lineup causes other guys to have a higher level of discipline. So I think these guys, even if it's not necessarily speaking or coaching, they feed off of each other. They feed off each other's energy and stuff. So I definitely agree.
Yep. Next question from Matt Reviglia. What's it going to take for Boone to get the boot? And he put the boot emoji. I love that. I want to hear your fantasy scenario in which he gets dramatically fired by the Yankees. What team does he manage afterwards? Love the show. Thanks.
I could see him managing the Chicago Cubs. I don't know why. They're very analytical. He just fits that organization very well for some reason. Weirdly, the Yankees are going in. In my wildest fantasies, and I didn't think we were going to go this way, but hey, it is a Fanmail Friday. He gets fired in the middle of this season. Right before the All-Star break, when they stumbled into the break.
Yeah.
That's what happens to me. But it didn't happen. I don't know where the scenario, I want to give you a good answer, right? You guys come to the show every single day to get good answers. I don't have an answer for how he gets fired in my best imagination. I want it to happen. He deserves to get fired. He doesn't deserve to keep his job. I don't know. And we said this a million times, Stacey, but be careful what you wish for, because if they fire Aaron Boone, they're going to bring in a puppet that's the same exact thing as Aaron Boone. They really are.
Yeah.
I don't know if it takes anything this year. They're going to make the postseason, barring a first round sweep to Minnesota.
I think that's what it's going to. That's what I was thinking in my head. If they get swept out of the wild card round.
Okay, but that's an impossible expectation. I mean, they could still have a horrible postseason, get through the wild card round and lose. And they got swept out of the ALCS, and that didn't do it. So, I don't know. I don't sit here with a ton of confidence towards it.
Yeah.
Finja51 says, I'm a new Yankees fan, so not terribly familiar with the team of the last 20 years. So I'm curious, how did we go from winning the World Series every year to a 15-year drought? What changed? Love the show, by the way. Listen to it every night. You guys are awesome. I agree. We are awesome. But they weren't winning the World Series every year 15 years ago. That was one season where, quite frankly, Finja, they spent a boatload of money going into that season. They wanted to, opening the new stadium. They knew
on
they
the
were
right players.
Profit.
That's the key, though, on the right players, because you could spend a lot of money, because the Yankees have in the past, and not win. They spent it on the right people.
Let's be real, though. They almost messed that up. So you had a steroid-using Alex Rodriguez. Let's be real. That's what he was doing at that point because he wound up getting suspended years later for it. A steroid-using Alex Rodriguez. Derek Jeter had a career year. Robinson Cano had an amazing year. You signed Nick Swisher, who not a lot of people were very interested in, and he had an amazing year for them. They became unbelievably close to not signing Mark Teixeira. In fact, he almost went to the Red Sox. That's how close it was.
That's where he was going. Like everyone figured he was going to the Red Sox, and literally at the last minute, the day before Christmas Eve, 2008, I remember I was on a message board when it happened. And when we found out that the Yankees got Teixeira, we all were like, what?
Yeah, and,
like,
then he turned around and gave you a 315, 35, and 100 season. You didn't that part, that wasn't in your lineup originally. You got CC Sabathia, who was by far the best pitcher available that offseason. You got AJ Burnett, who was the second best pitcher that offseason. You had unbelievable bullpen contributions. A lot of things fit into place that season, and a lot of things wound up working out that I don't know necessarily. You need all those pieces to kind of cohere and work well. It's actually more surprising, Finja, they didn't win more World Series in the years following, like 2010, 2011. Those teams were really good. Maybe better than the 2009 team, too. Those teams started to gel a little more and were really good teams. Those teams didn't win the World Series. Like we said yesterday, and we're going to get into this more in the offseason. You'll enjoy it a lot more. Teams don't do this. Like, teams do not win every year like they did in the late 90s. I know it would be great to see. That's not how sports work anymore. You're never going to see a team win a World Series in 96, 98, 99, 2000, win a pennant in 01, win a pennant in 03. That doesn't happen every single year. So that expectation needs to go away. We will certainly dive into that, though, more in the offseason.
It always makes me laugh when people talk about that, though, like with the Yankees, like, oh, they haven't won this and this. And I'm like, but they made the playoffs all those years. They won a couple of pennants in those years. And some of your teams would die
for that,
for the types of years that the Yankees had that you're making fun of. So, Minnesota Twin fans. Okay. Next up, Optimistic Zombies. Is this the worst Yankees bullpen in living memory? I appreciate this. Depends on how long you've been around for.
Yeah. Certainly in the last 15 years. That's always been their strength, right? I think it's progressively gotten worse with Boone. So
I'm trying to remember, though, because I don't even remember like how the bullpen worked in those lean years.
You know what though? It didn't matter. It didn't matter because the end of that bullpen had Mariano Rivera in it.
Well, until
and
2013.
in the lean years in those 2010s though, you had Aroldis Chapman, you had Andrew Miller, you had Dylan Betances, you had David Roth. Like, you had a lot of really good arms in that bullpen. And also, this is the key factor too. Aaron Boone, nowhere near as good at managing a bullpen as Joe Girardi. That was Joe Girardi's strength as a manager. Terrific bullpen manager. So, he knew when to insert guys and when to put guys in and when guys weren't doing well when they were. So you didn't have as many years with it. Even when the bullpen numbers may not have been as well as they are this year, the bullpen was still managed a lot better back in those years. He knew when to insert guys at the right time. So you got to take that into account too.
Yeah. I've been around 50 years. I don't think this is the worst Yankees bullpen.
I'm sure you've seen worse.
Yeah. The thing that's frustrating, though, is that it shouldn't be this bad. Like, some of the guys are really not performing the way they're supposed to.
This is what bullpen pitchers do, though.
The guys who were performing better earlier in the season have kind of hit a wall, which happens with bullpen pitchers. You have guys that were injured. You've been missing Ian Hamilton for 2 months that he hasn't been around, and he was a big piece last year.
Oh, yeah.
And, going into the season, I thought the bullpen was going to be a strength. I really did.
It's been a weakness.
And it's been the biggest weakness aside from manager and
back into the rotation.
The second half of the lineup.
Not easy.
Mm-mm.
Do you want to get to this last question on the other side?
Nope. Because we're doing nope. Let's do this one quickly. I have a thing.
You have a thing? All right.
Yeah.
Marvy G23 says, who do you think the Yankees should go after as the closer in the offseason? Dude, I don't know.
No idea.
I want to give you a good answer. I don't know.
I know. Who's even we don't even know who's available. We're not even there yet.
You don't know who's going to get bought out of their contract, who's going to get traded, DFA'd. We're not there yet.
Yeah, that's why I figured we could do that question, because we don't have an answer for that. I knew we wouldn't, because we don't. Like, we don't know what's going on with the offseason. We don't know if people are going to decide to unload someone that you might pick up who could be a club. Like, who knows?
Brian Cashman doesn't know either.
Right. Coming up next, one more Fan Mail Friday question and a preview of the Cubs series.
PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Guys, regular season football is right around the corner, and all you have to do is pick more or less on 2024 season stat projections on PrizePicks. Will C.J. Stroud's sophomore season result in more or less than 4,150 yards? Will Aaron Rodgers have the most likely backup season that we've ever seen in NFL history? Enter your season picks before week 1 kicks off. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code ONEWORD LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 off when you play $5. That's code ONEWORD LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 off instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back to Locked On Yankees. Remember that you can catch every pitch of the Yankees hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Yankees. Stacey, welcome back. We'll get into the Yankees Cubbies series, but first, the Chronicles of Robbie Garnes. Let's get to his novel a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Hey guys, love the show. Tonight's performance notwithstanding, Juan Soto has had a few tough games in a row, but both at the dish and the field. Now, nobody's ever accused Soto of being a platinum glove right fielder. However, his mini slump has highlighted his fielding issues. And although Soto was only 26, we all know that a player's fielding will deteriorate with age. Are you worried even a little bit that if the Yankees sign Soto, which I am praying they do, he will end up being a $50+ million a year DH for the preponderance of his career in the Big Apple? And if so, are you worried that having Soto as a long-term DH will hamstring the Yankees by forcing them to keep Judge in the outfield for the foreseeable future? Thanks again, and God bless. Robbie, where is your mind after these Rangers games? Like, come on, dude. Like, Juan Soto is one of the greatest free agents in the history of professional sports to ever become available. Come on, dude. Come back to us. Like, are they going to hesitate to sign Soto? Soto is not a platinum glove right fielder. He's not a bad right fielder. He's not a butcher out there. He's not great. He's also not horrible. And Soto's bat is Ted Williams. It is the same player. You keep Ted Williams. You keep Juan Soto. Come on, Robbie.
Now, to be fair, that question was from 2 days ago after, Soto did have a rough time, but Soto's picked things up since then.
Drastically.
Yes. So, he just hit into a little mini slump and he's fine now. I don't think having Soto as a DH, they play different positions at this point, right? Because they stick Judge in, and they could also move Judge to left field if they need to, and have them on the corners, right? Like, you don't know, but no, you sign him.
The Yankees are not worried going into this offseason what the lineup's going to look like in 7 years.
Yeah,
they're not. So I appreciate you looking forward, Robbie, but let's look forward to the Cubs series because you have this year to try and win.
Nice segue.
Stay in the now. Friday, all these games in this series are going to be 2:20 starts. Nice little afternoon vibe in Wrigley. If you're there, I'm jealous of you because it's a really fun. Get there at 11, go to the Cubby Bear, get a beer, and go across into the stadium. It's a really cool place. If you made the trip out there, like I know a couple people did, although rough weekend because NFL opening weekend, really tough to wind up like in Chicago. I would have loved to go, but I'm not missing week 1 of the NFL. Games 1, 2, and 3, all 2:20 start times, which is weird that they didn't give at least one prime time. I would have thought at least Sunday night would have been Yankees Cubs, Sunday Night Baseball. That would have made a little more sense. But this is what we get. You're going to get Luis Gil. He's 12-6 with a 3.39 going up against Javier Assad, 7-4 with a 3.21. Now, I'm going to add the second game in right after it because there is a little bit of a contingency to it, and we'll explain it to you guys. Clarke Schmidt's going to go for the Yankees in the second game, 5-3 with a 2.52. He'll go against Jordan Wicks, who's 2-2 at a 3.82. Now, Stacey, explain the contingency because they're going to have Cortez back these guys up, yes?
Yeah, so what Boone said the other day was Nestor will piggyback either Schmidt or Gil if they need it, just in case they can't go long because they're both coming back from injury. Gil more so than Schmidt. Schmidt's been pitching for a few starts where Gil's only made a couple of starts or even just one start before coming back. So Nestor will piggyback them, and then he'll be back in the rotation for the Red Sox series, probably toward the end of the Red Sox series.
Yeah, so that's the plan there. And then game 3, if you were worried about Garrett Cole, fear not. He's going to pitch on game 3 at 2:20 in the afternoon Eastern time, 6-3 with a 3.55. Going up against former Yankee great Jameson Taillon, 9-8 with a 3.66. These guys are actually good buddies, so it'll be a fun start to see. Looking for Garrett Cole to just build on stuff, and I think seeing him get a start in the next series gets you really confident. Clearly, that last game against Texas was just a cramp. Happens. Eat more bananas.
Oh, one thing I need to correct. The Red Sox series isn't until next weekend. They play the Royals in between. So Nestor will probably start, I would assume, Friday of the Red Sox series, and they would start it there. So thank you for all your questions for Fanmail Friday. We appreciate it. The insiders did well when I gave them their deadline. I woke up to some messages on Thursday. I was like, oh, nice job, everyone. And good job on YouTube, as always. One more time, you can catch every pitch of the Yankees hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Yankees. Oh, yes, John Sterling coming back for the Orioles series. Correct. At the end of the month. And the postseason. So maybe the Yankees, maybe that'll do something. I don't know. Doesn't it feel like the Yankees kind of fell off after he retired? Maybe he'll bring the mojo back. Never know.
We'll see.
Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And not only do we cover your team every day, but now we are giving you instant episodes after every single game. Starting next week, you can check out the Locked On Yankees postcast right here on the Locked On Yankees podcast feed. That is audio, as well as streaming on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. You get rapid reaction to all the biggest moments with the Locked On Yankees postcast. We will be on there occasionally. I think we're going to try and alternate when they want us on, so it should be pretty fun. So you're going to get double doses of us some nights. Lucky you. Coming up next week, recapping the series against the Cubs, previewing the series against the Royals and Red Sox because the Yankees are back home for 2 tough series, and we will start the week with Miners Monday, and we promise we will start the week with Miners Monday this time and not skip it. So that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll see you next week.